want to do some football, or where are we going?
Yeah, we can do some football.
All right.
Yeah.
So with the season around the corner coming up, we're going to address a couple teams on our podcast, give some takes, talk about, where we expect for them to go. We can't talk about all the teams in one podcast. It's just too much. But to start it off, you said you wanted to talk about the Giants or the Steelers.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to start off with the Giants.
Okay.
Definitely the Giants. We in our own backyard, I figured we start there. The New York Giants, like with their whole situation, I think that, it's let me say this. There's so much to take in from the Giants. And it's our first time talking about the Giants, because our podcast has just recently started. So let me make this clear. Let me start this. So the Giants, the storyline that's coming in for the Giants this year is that they're 4-13 from last year. The topic of that storyline is they have nowhere else to go but up, right? So the reality of it is that this is all stemming from the bad decisions that they made. Everybody wants to blame Gettleman, which, yes, he is a part of why they are starting from scratch again. But this is all going back to, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because we've never had an opportunity to talk about this. So the Giants, because they felt pressure for the whole Eli Manning, they held on to Eli Manning too long.
Oh, just like the Steelers. Let me get one in.
Go ahead.
They held on to Eli too long, just like the Steelers held on to Ben Roethlisberger too long.
Facts.
So I guess that's going to intersect.
Facts.
But go ahead with the Giants.
And we're going to get to them too. But the Giants held on to Eli Manning too long. And where I'm going to go with this is, and this is the one stat I'm going to bring up when I start this. So the Giants haven't been to a playoffs since 2016. You know when that happened? I'm going to tell you. I'm going to remind you when that was. That was when you saw Odell Beckham and Trey Songz and all them on that boat the week of that they had a playoff game. Now, that it was fine. I think they could be out of town, whatever they could do. But it was just a bad look because the outcome of that game.
The optics.
Right. So nobody would have said nothing had they won the game, but it was just a mentality. Anyway, long story short is, I think that at some point, and where I'm starting with this, I think at the time it was the general manager, what's his name, Jerry Reese, and Ben McAdoo was the coach at the time. I think they saw what was coming. Mm-hmm. They said, "Yo, we got to move on." So they had started. It wasn't looking good the next season because the Giants had made the playoffs. So it was kind of like, let's see where this goes next year, and it didn't look good. So they had benched Eli. They started Geno Smith. It was a whole big thing because Eli had the consecutive game starting streak. Then they released Ben McAdoo, right? They let go of McAdoo that year, and they let go of Jerry Reese, right? Because they wanted to show they were behind Eli and maybe that they were wrong for what they did. Okay. So then they bring in Pat Schumer because they wanted to put the Band-Aid on because, and not that Schumer's a bad coach. I just think he was there to be the fall guy. And maybe I'm wrong, but it just didn't look right. So you brought Schumer in because you thought Eli had something left in the tank. Mind you, you drafted Daniel Jones. I think at this time they still had Davis Webb. If I'm not mistaken, they still had Davis Webb. But then at some point, the Eli thing wasn't working with Schumer, right? Schumer brought him in. They brought Schumer in. They brought Saquon Barkley in. It just wasn't working. So then Schumer gets fired, right? Because I think Eli was on his way out the door anyway. And then they brought in, and Eli retired, and then whatever, he moves on. And then Joe Judge comes because that was clearly the guy that was going to take the Giants over to the next step. So mind you, you are now, fast forward, it's 6 years. 6 years. You've had Ben McAdoo, you've had Pat Shermer, and then which you made the fall guy. Let's just be honest. You made the fall guy, right?
Facts.
You made him the fall guy, and then you went to Joe Judge, who was the special teams coach for the New England Patriots. He wasn't the guy that was there from day one, changing the system. He just learned from Belichick. I mean, is it that bad that y'all want to be that down? That's my question when they hired him. That's how bad you wanted to be down? You was willing to hire the special teams coach? Really? Really? And let me put this as a side note. All these New England Patriots assistants, how they doing right now? Other than Brian Flores, who, and no shot at him, he couldn't even make the playoffs even with his roster, right? And, we won't talk about that right now. But All those New England, Matt Patricia, don't work out. Josh McDaniel, when he went to Denver, it didn't work out. Charlie Weiss, he's been in Notre Dame, that didn't work out. Romeo Crennel didn't work out. Because trust me, Cleveland had bad years, and Kansas City, he did worse. And the Texans, they just said, we're going to keep you here. So all this New England Patriot way, which is all really just a bunch of BS and AKA a code for we ran with Brady, we like Brady, so we did whatever the coach really asked us, but it was really Brady that had us rocking the way we had to. But I'm sidetracking again, I apologize. So the Giants brought this guy in. He was supposed to develop Daniel Jones. Never happened. Never happened. The team got worse. Let me go here with the stats. So the Giants last season, they finished the season 4-13. They were 1-5 in the division, right? They ended the season on a 7-game losing streak. Mind you, they started the season 1-3.
Tridash.
Right. Then they right. So this is and then Daniel Jones, he seems to keep taking the heat. And in the thing is like going into this season, like you know,
they're trying to make Daniel Jones the fall
well,
guy.
they didn't extend his 5th-year option. Mm-hmm. So usually when you draft a kid, you keep him 4 years. You gotta exercise the 5th-year option. They didn't do it. They said we want to see what happens this year. I'm not making excuses for him because I don't know, to be honest with you. The part of me is wondering why they drafted him anyway. I don't really remember Daniel Jones in college. I don't.
Can I interject?
I don't see. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that he's having the same problems that Saquon had prior to his injury? Because I know he got injured at one point, which was a lack of a strong line. Because I heard that talk around Saquon Barkley around why he couldn't get certain yardage because the line was Tridash.
Yes.
So I want you to go into that if you think that's the problem that he's also suffering for as well.
He didn't have a line. He didn't have a running game. He had a horrible coach that couldn't develop him. I think that the team, that the owners and them, they came out and said they wasn't behind him. They said they didn't do their best to develop him. But so they didn't. So you say that, you take responsibility for it, and then you come out and say, well, we're not going to explore the 5th option. We need to see what you got. He's starting all over again. I think he was there when Shermer got there, when Shermer was still there. So now you talking about this is his 3rd coach. This is this kid's 3rd coach
in 4 years, and
you're gonna ask him. And mind you, that mess that he was dealing with Joe, whatever that. I got no words for that. So let's get the statistics of how bad it was. The Giants there's 32 teams in the league.
Yep.
The Giants were 31st in total offense, 31st in passing, 31st in rushing, and 31st in total points scored.
Pretty much dead last in every statistical
real
category.
Bad, right? So what did you do to surround this kid? I don't know. And then they're also talking about Saquon Barkley. They're like, well, we want to see if Saquon could go back to what he was. Well, what did you think was going to happen? You drafted this kid, and then you made him run behind a line that was horrible, okay?
And
he ended up getting injured, which we all knew they was going to run this kid into the ground. I saw it coming. They were going to run this kid into the ground. That's why they gave him that money early. They knew what they was about to do. So they ran the kid into the ground, and now all of a sudden he has to prove himself? Really? He has to prove himself. Mind you, he came into the league doing what he did, and then with nothing. Because I'm sorry. Because real quick, I remember when Beckham Jr. had said, he's like, yo, we got Eli out there, and he's like a sitting duck. So if we know that, we really ain't got to really watch. So what we got to do is watch the run. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We just got off talking about basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what the NFL players are going through with them having to prove themselves?
Facts.
When they're in bad circumstances?
Facts.
So I just want you basketball players and NBA players to look at what NFL players have to go through when they're set up for failure.
Facts.
They have to prove themselves or they're cut without pay, or their contract gets thrown in the garbage. But I just wanted to throw that in there because we just ended talking about how diva-ish certain NBA players are, and now when we deal with the NFL, we see what they're going through. But go ahead.
Right. It's basically bottom line, and I don't know if people are not following what I'm saying about the Giants. They tried to bring a New England system in, and it didn't work. That's bottom line what happened. You tried to bring in a New England way, and it did not work. Okay? So now you're restarting over again. You got Brian Daboll, I think that's his name, the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, who is great at what he does. great. He develops quarterbacks well. It seems like the Giants asked him to come in with the guy from Buffalo. There was another management guy. The guy that's the general manager now for the Giants, he was in the office with the Bills. So he knows what to do. That he helped develop Josh Allen and take that franchise to another level. What ends up happening is, long story short, it seems like what they're asking them to do, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we can do for this season, and let's see if we can get better. The objective and the goal is for them right now is to just get better. That's it. Just get better than 4 games at this stage right now.
But is that even good enough? As you just pointed out, it's been 6 years since the playoff.
Yes.
So what? We're gonna win 6 games next year and throw a celebration?
No. It's because this is. Let's be honest. The Giants ain't never gonna admit it. They said they didn't give Daniel Jones everything to succeed as a quarterback. Right? We all know it's a quarterback-driven league. Or even if you have a okay quarterback or a guy that can play great, but he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he can still play great. Right? You could get to a Super Bowl. You can win a Super Bowl. Right? They didn't give Jones that he doesn't really have weapons. I mean, he has some. So let me give what he has. He has Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slay, right? That's who he's working with this year, okay? And they beefed up the line. They got Evan Neal, and they got some pieces defensively. They've been okay defensively. Defensively, they're not bad. So I think for them, they're just trying to take the next step forward, because I think they look at, now I'm going to tell you, when you look in their division, the Giants are going to have to start looking to compete to get better, because if you look at it, Dak Prescott's not going nowhere. And we all know Jerry Jones is going to break his where
is he going?
He's going to break his, even if he's not, but he's going to break his neck to keep the Cowboys competitive. The Eagles have made it clear by what they did in the offseason that they are all in to taking Jalen Hurts to the next level, right? I can assure you. Even with all the mess that the Washington Commanders are going through right now, when you got Ron Rivera running your team, he's not going to let that team fail, even with Carson Wentz. And much as people want to say about Carson Wentz, he does win games. I mean, Indianapolis was in a playoff hunt, whether you want to admit it or not. The Giants wasn't even in a playoff hunt last year. So when you look at the organization, the Giants organization, that GM that took over for Gettleman, he's in a bad salary cap situation, and he's basically building from scratch. So what they have to do, this is Daniel Jones's, I don't want to say audition, but it's like, before we invest in a 5th year and then go get all these pieces like the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts, we need to see something. It's like when you saw Josh Allen with the Bills before, what's that receiver's name? Before Stephon Diggs got there,
yes,
Allen was spreading the ball around, but he still didn't have that guy. If he went up against Patrick Mahomes, he didn't have that guy to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you knew you knew he could get the ball. You knew he could do what he could do, right? So he just needed that guy to add to the pieces that he already had. They need to see something like that from Jones.
Yeah, we're back. So I wanted to ask you, while we're still on this segment, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, so you just laid it all out.
Yeah.
You went into the whole spill and you cooked them pretty good. Do you think it's clear that he's the fall guy, Daniel Jones?
Yeah.
It's like, unless he wins 7 or 8 games, it's like, what do you really expect from him? I guess this is my question.
What's that?
How do I frame this? Because there's really no other way to say it. What do you think he needs to do to save his job?
He's got to make better decisions. See, it's hard to say that, because let's just say this. Whatever he's up against, they are giving him the best that they can give him right now.
Okay.
Which is, they're building the line. The running back situation is okay. I think Saquon will be just fine. So that line, as long as that line's okay, and they see some type of better decision making, and they're like, okay, we're in games, we're competitive. Now let's give this kid what he needs to get over the hump, or do we got to give him a good defense? Like what do we need to give him, or what do we need to surround this guy with to make this team better? He's basically just got to show he can play. He's got to stop throwing bad picks. He's got to stop. If you got only a certain number of time with the line, you don't got a best line, you better start learning how to be mobile. if you
You
got
want Daniel Jones to be mobile.
it's
God bless.
I mean, not like I don't want him to try to be like Kyler Murray to spread offense.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
he's gonna have to learn. He's gonna have to just do better than what he did last year. Okay, and I know he got injured, but it's the thing is that they're gonna surround you with a little bit of better line. We just need to see you be better decision maker. And his body of work will speak. If his body of work is better than it was last season, they're going to keep this kid. They're going to roll with it. But if they don't, then they're going to have to start from scratch. Because I can tell you now, Tyrod Taylor's the backup. And I seen what Tyrod Taylor can do. No disrespect, but you just might, I mean, your season's over. Because let me tell you about Tyrod Taylor's history. He lost his job to Baker Mayfield, even though that was already planned. You was up in Buffalo, and you couldn't win up there. That's why Josh Allen came in there. The Chargers messed you up health-wise, but Justin Herbert was just that great when he came in. And in Houston Texans, something went south there because they didn't even want you on the field. So I know that's Dable's guy, but that's the backup plan if it's not looking good for Daniel Jones.
Okay.
So, yes.
So he don't have to do much.
Yeah.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah,
so over or under 8 games?
Under. I think the – let me – no, I didn't write the first 4. Let's just say this. I'm not going to go into the first 4 games. Whatever. I'll pull it up. But let me say this. They're in a division where the Eagles are looking. They're not looking for playoffs no more. They're looking to get deep. They're looking to take the next step and see who they're going to have to beat and where they're going to have to be in the top 2 teams. Because right now we all know, I mean, what is it, Tampa Bay and who else is coming out in the Rams? Mm-hmm. The Rams are a good team, right? So, I mean, their Eagles are at that peak. They're looking to see with what they had this year, what Jalen Hurts can do, and if he can do what they think they can do, how can they get to the next step, which is a Super Bowl? Dallas ain't going nowhere. You understand what I'm saying? And Washington's going to play you tough. They ain't going nowhere, even with the mess that's going on in the front office and all that, right? So, like I said with them, with what the Giants are doing, I can assure you that GM came in there, and I'm pretty sure he said, we are starting from scratch. We're going to be competitive. We got to put a competitive team on the field because it's bad, dog. I mean, 4-13. You just, I mean, my God. You can't get no worse than that. You know what I'm saying? So, you got to put a competitive team on the field. I think they'll be over 4 games, but I think they'll be under 8.
All right. So let's talk about our second team.
It's that bad. Oh, and real quick, I'm sorry. They did make some changes. I apologize before we go on. The Giants did make some changes. The one change that they brought in the defensive coordinator from the Ravens, Dan Martindale. So that means their defense is going to be very aggressive, which it wasn't a bad thing. And they also drafted that kid from Oregon. I want to say Thibodeau, that's his name. I know I'm saying it wrong, but the defensive end from Oregon, he got a sprained MCL from the knee buckle block that came the other night. But that's neither here nor there. They're building towards the right direction. So like I said, that's what's making me say more than 4 games, but it's going to be under 8.
Good luck. This is the Giants, man. I don't have too much to say on that.
Yeah.
Okay. But transition into the second team.